Hello everyone, in today's video I'll be reviewing The Dark Knight, but before I get started I want to point out this is one of the only few t-shirts I have of Batman the Joker. I would have gotten a Batman and Joker Heath Ledger and Christian Bale t-shirt, but I didn't have the time and just want to get this review going. After all the hype and excitement of the success of Batman Begins, After all the hype and excitement of the success of Batman Begins, 3 years later, Christopher Nolan made a sequel to Batman Begins that wowed and awed audiences, and Batman Begins gets overshadowed by The Dark Knight. This is the best Batman movie ever to date and one of the best comic book movies ever made, ever in the history of comic book films. The Dark Knight was once again directed by Christopher Nolan. He also produced, co-wrote, and did the screenplay. The movie was produced by Emma Thomas and Charles Rove. And also, the story was written by David S. Goyer. The screenplay was done by Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan's brother. The film stars Christian Bale reprising his role as Batman Bruce Wayne again. Michael Caine also reprising his role as Alfred. Heath Ledger, may he rest in peace. Gary Oldman playing Jim Gordon again. Aaron Eckhart, Maggie Gyllanhaal replacing Katie Holmes as Rachel Dawes. And Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox again. The Dark Knight is about Batman, who is at help from Lieutenant Jim Gordon and District Attorney Harvey Dent to keep Gotham City tight and clear up crime off the streets in Gotham City. A criminal calling himself the Joker suddenly throws the town into chaos. Batman begins to thread a fine line between heroism and vigilantism. The Dark Knight was released on July 18, 2008. The movie made $1.005 billion at the box office. It was one of the few movies at the time to gross over $1 billion at the time at the box office, the first being Titanic to gross over $100 billion. The Dark Knight was nominated for 8 Academy Awards and won 2 awards. It won Best Supporting Actor and Sound Edition. When The Dark Knight came out, this movie got so much praise and hype when it came out. It's the best Batman movie ever, one of the best comic book films ever made. It's hard to believe it's been over 10 plus years since this movie came out. I was a freshman in high school at the time, and I was 14 when I first saw this movie when it came out in the theaters. Yikes. This movie makes me feel old. The marketing was crazy at the time for this movie, especially after when Heath Ledger died. And just like when Michael Caine was cast as Batman, people were not happy and were against the casting of Heath Ledger around the time when this movie came out. He was known for 10 Things I Hate About You, a teen comedy, A Knight's Tale, Monsters Ball, and Brokeback Mountain, and I'm Not There. Comic fans did not think he could pull it off as the Joker. In January 2008, when I was 14, a freshman in high school at the time, I remember going to the movies with my cousins to go see Enchanted. I remember standing in line, I saw a movie poster for The Dark Knight, and thinking, okay, another Batman movie's coming out. And one week later, I'm on the computer, look at AOL News, and I see a headline article, Heath Ledger died. At that time, I thought, no Batman movie? Not realizing the movie was already done filming. There was also a video I saw in his last interview before he died when he was promoting I'm Not There when he played Bob Dylan. You can tell by his body language he was shaking, and something was wrong and not right. Looking back at the time, it never occurred to me how big of an actor he was during this time, and not realizing how great of an actor he was. Around this time, I did not pay attention like I do now with actors and actresses and movies. The only movie I was familiar with him at this time was 10 Things I Hate About You. My older sisters loved that movie, used to watch that movie a lot. I also remember being in school the next day after his death, reading a newspaper article and seeing photos of what he looked like as the Joker. My first thought was wow, that's very different and scary. At first, I was not a fan of the look, but once I saw the movie, the look of the Joker went away out the window after seeing Heath Ledger's performance, because at that point, I didn't care about the look. All I cared about was the performance of him as the Joker in the movie. Even though this movie did not establish making comic books serious, it really showed and made the comic book genre can be taken seriously, and that comic book movies are not just for children, and that comic books can be commercially viable. This movie came out the same year as Iron Man, the star of the MCU. This movie still is very popular today in the comic book community. This is basically like the Citizen Caine of, like, comic book films. This movie feels like a Michael Mann crime drama style movie in some ways. Even Christopher Nolan said the movie Heat by Michael Mann was an inspiration for this movie. And also, once again, just like in Batman Begins, Christopher Nolan combined the Long Halloween and the Killing Joke Batman comic books for inspiration for this movie. Holy cow, Heath Ledger as the Joker in this movie is just great. He steals the show, and he is the highlight of this movie. As the Joker, he is a crazy, psychotic character who only cares about nobody but himself. He is the master of manipulations. The Joker can really get under your skin in this movie. The opening scene when he tricks his henchmen killing themselves one by one so he can have the money all to himself. The interrogation scene when the Joker wants Batman to break his rule and code of killing him to prove his point on how that he's no different, just as corrupt as Gotham. But of course, Batman does not kill him. Also, he wants his phone call manipulates Detective Stevens in the interrogation room by getting him to say, "How many of your friends have I killed?" And that just really, like, sets off Detective Stevens. I'm probably going to get some backlash for saying this. As much as I love Jack Nicholson as the Joker in the '89 film, Ledger's Joker is scary, more intimidating than Nicholson's Joker. This is one of the best performances I've ever seen in a movie from a character who is crazy, mentally ill, and unstable. I also like his character who is crazy, but he's a man of his word, and he's trying to prove his point on how Gotham is very corrupt, and that the very big people of Gotham City do not care about society and the little people. When he burns the money, it's his little message on how money does not mean anything to him. The Joker also points out like money is an illusion and evil. Unlike the first Tim Burton movie where the Joker had a background story, this Joker does not have a background story. When he says, I got these scars, he makes up two different stories because he has no idea himself how he got the scars. And also, the Joker has no idea who he is either as a person. It goes back to his background and origin of being an unknown story, which makes it unique. All this motivation proving his point shows how the Joker has lost faith in humanity and society. This basically goes back to the Killing Joke story. The interrogation scene between Batman and the Joker is one of my all-time favorite scenes in film history. Batman is really pissed off trying to get the Joker to talk where Harvey Dent and Rachel were kidnapped, but the Joker wants him to kill him. I like a little homage that it pays tribute to the Batman '89 film when the Joker is like, "Come on, hit me!" The difference is, Batman missed for a reason because he does not kill. It's sad how Heath Ledger was a great talented actor who died so young. Another talented actor died way too soon. It's sad I will never know what other movies he could have done, because this man had decades ahead of him, showing how talented he was. He could have been a real legend. I remember when this movie came out, it got so much hype and praise and attention. Some people were pointing out the reason why this movie did so well and got so much praise and won the Oscars because he died. Honestly, I don't see it that way. Ledger was just really great in this movie. It's one of the best Joker betrayals in a Batman movie, in my opinion. A lot of people point out different theories that he died because the Joker really got to him because of how he took his method acting way too far and seriously. That's a tough one. I can't really prove that. The way I see it from what I've read or watched documentaries, he had health problems before he died and before he played the Joker. And also, apparently, he had depression and anxiety and insomnia. I remember one time my friend Jeremy once showed an audio recording of one of his last interviews he did before he died of him predicting his death in a way. I don't remember exactly what he said in the interview, but this is how I basically remember the highlight of it. On how what his next film projects were, and he said after that, "I'm gonna rest and sleep for a long time." That part I remember. Also, around this time before he died, he was making a movie with Terry Gilliam called The Imaginary Dr. Parnassus. I'm not really sure if I'm saying that part right. And also, after when he died halfway through filming, they got Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell to do certain scenes of the film of his character. I also remember around that time, when they replaced him in certain scenes, instead of keeping the salary and paychecks themselves, they were very kind to give their money and some of their salaries to Heath Ledger's daughter, to Matilda Ledger. Which I have to say, that was kind of very nice of them to do that. Aaron Eckhart is great in this movie as Harvey Dent Two-Face. Much better and an upgrade compared to Tommy Lee Jones. Batman believes in Harvey Dent that he will clean up crime in the streets off of Gotham, and Bruce believes he will quit being Batman to have a normal life and be with Rachel. Bruce also believes that Harvey Dent is the real hero of Gotham City that it deserves. Despite Bruce wanting to be with Rachel, the downside is Rachel's dating Harvey Dent. There's a little love triangle going on here. I like how in this movie that Harvey Dent starts off likable because he really wanted to change Gotham City and make a difference. And stop crime. But after the accident, he changes. The corruption behind the police department and losing Rachel really changed him a lot. At the hospital, the Joker disguises himself as a nurse, and he manipulates Harvey Dent, telling him that it's the corrupt cops, gangsters should go after and kill them, not him, are responsible for Rachel's death. Harvey Dent is mad, angry, and furious with rage, and now he believes people should die. It's crazy to say that instead of killing the Joker in that moment, he lets the Joker live, especially after he was the one responsible for Rachel's death. Instead, Harvey turns the other way around, cheek around, killing criminals and people who betrayed him. One thing I want to point out I don't understand is when Rachel dies, I don't understand how Batman to choose between Rachel and Dent. The police could have saved one or the other, and Batman could have saved either at the same time. I mean, they literally both could have saved one or the other at the same time and still could have saved their lives rather than picking between Rachel and Harvey Dent. Even though I love this movie, the minor flaw I have with this movie is I wish they did not kill off Two-Face too soon. I feel like Two-Face was rushed in at the last minute. When Harvey Dent has his accent, that should have been say for the third movie where Two-Face is the main villain. But part of the reason why they killed off Two-Face too early because Ledger was possibly interested in coming back for playing the Joker a second time in the third Batman movie. But of course, we all know what happened. Ledger died and that changed everything. In this movie, Batman loses to the Joker. He loses the love of his life, he feels bad and guilty of what happened to Harvey Dent. Batman also feels guilty for killing Harvey Dent despite saving Commissioner Gordon's life and his family. It makes Batman think about what Harvey Dent said earlier in this movie about you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Batman feels like he was the villain. Batman did not want Harvey Dent's image ruined by the public believing that Harvey Dent was the real hero of Gotham City. I'll never forget when I saw this in the theater as a teenager. I I remember like walking out confused and not understanding like what did the ending mean to this film. But then when I rewatched it around Christmas time, my father, when I got it as a Christmas present, my dad explained it to me, and years later, now as an adult, now I finally understand what Batman was saying in the end of this movie. Batman's first scene in this movie is awesome. When he stops the Scarecrow from a drug crime, and other people dress up like him, the guy's like, "We're trying to help you." Batman says, "I don't need help." And Crane responds, "Not my diagnosis." And the other guy, who the fake Batman, says, "What gives you the right? What's the difference between me and you?" And Batman replies, "I'm not wearing hockey pads." Even though Christian Bale was good in this movie's Batman, but this is where as Batman he goes a little bit over the top and annoying with his voice at times. "This city, ready to deserve." Again, how do I take that voice seriously? Just like the first movie, this has some humorous moments once again with Bruce, Lucius, and Alfred. When Lucius shows Bruce more gadgets, Lucius informs Bruce, "Perhaps you should read the instructions first, Mr. Wayne." When Bruce goes to Hong Kong to get loud and leaves Alfred on a boat with beautiful women, Bruce asks Alfred, "Will be okay?" And he looks at the woman. He says something funny about suntan lotion. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but it was just so funny. Alfred's like, "I'm good, Master Wayne." Alfred's like, "Easy job right now. Hang out with a bunch of beautiful women on this boat." When Bruce meets Rachel and Harvey Dent at a restaurant, Bruce is like, "Let's get 2 extra seats together." Harvey Dent is like, "I don't think they won't let us do that." And Bruce is like, "Oh no, they will. I own the place." At the fundraiser party for Harvey Dent, Harvey asks Alfred if Rachel has any crazy ex-psychotic ex-boyfriends he should be aware about. Alfred replies, "Oh, you have no idea." Just like Batman Begins, this movie also has a social commentary on real-life current events on how Batman Begins comments on the corruption behind the justice system. And this movie points out there are good cops and bad cops that are traitors. Some police officers can be trusted, other cops can't. Also, another social commentary on terrorist attacks. When the Joker kills one of the copycat Batmans, it goes on live TV. Very similar how, in real life, when terrorists kidnap soldiers, torture them, going live on TV news. This movie shows how the government reacts to terrorist threats. The way this movie ends on a cliffhanger, this is basically the Empire Strikes Back of cliffhanger endings. When Batman takes the blame and fall for Harvey Dent's death, he runs away from the dogs and the police. Jim Gordon tells his son he's the hero that Gotham City deserves. A dark night. Despite all the hype and praise this movie gets, I do love this movie, but I would not point this out as one of the greatest films ever made. Definitely one of the best comic book movies and the best Batman movies ever made, but in a different type of category. Okay, now what are your thoughts on The Dark Knight, the best Batman film ever made?
Yeah. The Dark Knight, I would say, is it does hold that position. Um, what more can you say about Heath Ledger's performance? It's just magnificent. He really brings so much new to the character. Yet he also is able to maintain the tradition of what the Joker is. Um, he's, Jack Nicholson is more of a cartoony character type, whereas Heath Ledger is more of a realistic, pathological, psychotic. He's a psychological murderer, and yet he still adds humor to it,
Right.
which is really an amazing combination.
Before he was did you know who he was before the Joker? Or...
Heath Ledger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember when he died, I vaguely knew much about him or knew who he was, but I was only familiar with 10 Things I Hated by because of my older sisters and
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was familiar with him in a few movies.
Like Brokeback Mountain or I'm Not There.
And the other one was
Knight's Tale.
Knight's Tale. And then he played in Monsters Ball also.
Yes.
So he was always gave a great performance. But I don't think anybody expected him to give such a character-defining performance like he did with the Joker.
Were you a little bit somewhat like on like the same level like with some people when they announced he was going to be the Joker, but you thought, nah, I'll just give him a chance?
Yeah. I wasn't one way or the other. You know, I didn't think, oh, they shouldn't use him, or oh, that's great they're using him. It was just like, well, let's see what he does with it.
Right. And would you say that because of this is an interesting question that I've always thought, like, people think that because this film got so much hype because of the time he just passed away is why the film did so well. Would you say that's maybe or maybe not true? Or
no, that's not true.
Because I don't believe that either, because he was like great in the film.
No, I don't think that's why it was popular. I mean, I think people were really saddened that he passed away because he's such an amazing talent.
It was. And
yeah. No, I don't. I think it was popular because it was a great movie.
Yeah. This is a trick question too. Ledger or Nicholson?
I would have to say that if you were to see Ledger in Tim Burton's movie, he would be out of place. If you saw Nicholson in the more recent, he would be out of place. So for their particular styles of the directors, they were perfect reach.
So that was my review of The Dark Knight. Hope you liked the video. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to get the latest updates on my YouTube channel. And I will see you next time for The Dark Knight Rises.